Chapter 1. The Fallen Genius. Douqi Stage 3. The 5 glaring words burned across the black testing stone. The young man's expression did not change. Only the faint, bitter curl at the corner of his mouth betrayed him. His hands clenched so tightly that his nails dug into his palms, sending sharp pain through his skin. Xiao, Douqi Stage 3. Classification low. Standing beside the stone monument, a middle-aged examiner glanced at the result and announced it without emotion. The moment he finished, whispers and mocking laughter spread across the square. Stage 3. Just like everyone expected. Our so-called genius hasn't improved at all in an entire year. What a useless failure. He's an embarrassment to the clan. If the clan leader weren't his father, someone like him would have been thrown out years ago. He wouldn't still be standing here living off the family. He used to be the greatest young genius in Wutan City. How did he fall this far? Who knows? Maybe he did something so terrible that even the heavens decided to punish him. Every laugh and every cruel remark cut into Xiao like a blade. His breathing slowly grew heavier. He raised his head. His face was still young and refined, but his dark eyes carried a weariness far beyond his age. He looked across the crowd of boys and girls who were laughing at him, and the bitterness in his smile deepened. So they had nothing better to do. 3 years ago, these same people had lowered their heads and smiled whenever they spoke to him. Now they were desperate to take back every ounce of pride they had swallowed. Xiao let out a quiet, humorless laugh. Then he turned away and walked to the end of the line. His lonely figure seemed completely out of place in the lively square. Next to Xiaomei, the moment the examiner called her name, a young girl stepped quickly out of the crowd. The surrounding chatter faded at once. Countless eager eyes turned toward her. Xiaomei was no older than 14. She could not yet be called a breathtaking beauty, but there was already a hint of charm in her youthful features. Her innocence blended with a natural allure, making her the center of attention. She walked up to the black stone monument, placed one hand against its familiar surface, and slowly closed her eyes. The stone lit up. Douqi Stage 7. Xiaomei. Douqi Stage 7. Classification high. Yes. At the examiner's announcement, Xiaomei opened her eyes and lifted her chin with a proud smile. Stage 7 at her age. At this rate, she'll become a true Dao practitioner in less than 3 years. She really is one of the clan's most promising young talents. Admiring voices rose from every direction, and Xiaomei's smile grew brighter. Vanity was a temptation few young people could easily resist. Then she remembered the conversations she had often shared with the other girls. Her eyes passed over the crowd and stopped on the solitary figure standing at the very end of the line. She frowned. For a moment, she considered walking over to him. Then she dismissed the thought. She and Xiao no longer belonged to the same world. Judging by his performance over the last few years, once he came of age, he would probably become nothing more than an ordinary member of the clan's lower ranks. Xiaomei, on the other hand, possessed outstanding talent. The clan would invest heavily in her future. Their paths had already separated. She sighed softly. In her mind, she saw the proud and brilliant boy Xiao had been 3 years earlier. He began training at the age of 4. At 10, he reached Stage 9 Dao Qi. At 11, he broke through Stage 10, formed his Qi vortex, and became the youngest Du practitioner in the Xiao clan's last 100 years. Back then, he had been confident, dazzling, and seemingly limitless. Countless young girls had admired him. Xiaomei had been one of them. But the road of a genius was never guaranteed to remain smooth. 3 years ago, when Xiao fame had reached its peak, disaster struck without warning. The Qi vortex he had worked so hard to form vanished overnight. After that, the Douqi inside his body began to decrease in a strange and unexplainable way. Losing his Qi vortex meant losing his strength. In a single night, a brilliant genius became weaker than an ordinary cultivator. The shock hollowed him out. His confidence faded. His spirit sank. The word genius, once spoken with admiration, was replaced by ridicule and contempt. The higher a person climbed, the harder the fall. And after a fall like this, perhaps Xiao would never rise again. Next, Xiao. The examiner's voice rang through the square once more. The instant that elegant name was called, the entire crowd fell silent. Every eye turned in the same direction. A young girl in a purple dress stood calmly beneath their attention. Her delicate face remained peaceful, unaffected by the stares around her. Her presence was graceful and pure, like a lotus just beginning to bloom. Though she was still young, it was already easy to imagine how extraordinary her beauty would become. In both appearance and bearing, she stood a level above Xiaomei. No wonder the crowd reacted so strongly. Xiao stepped forward. She placed one small hand against the stone monument. Her sleeve slipped back slightly, revealing a pale, slender wrist. After several quiet seconds, the black stone burst into dazzling light. Douqi Stage 9. Classification high. The square went completely still. Stage 9 already. That's terrifying. No one in the younger generation can compare to Lady Xianxia. After the stunned silence, several boys swallowed hard, their eyes filled with awe. Douqi was the foundation every cultivator had to build. The earliest phase was divided into 10 stages. Once a person reached stage 10, they could condense their energy into a chi vortex and officially become a respected Dao practitioner. Among the crowd, Xiao watched the girl in purple standing before the monument. A trace of jealousy passed over her face. Even the usually indifferent examiner smiled. Lady Xianxia, in another 6 months, you should be ready to attempt the formation of your chi vortex. If you succeed, you'll become a Dao practitioner at 14. He paused, his tone filled with respect. You would be only the second person in the Xiao clan to achieve such a feat in the last 100 years. The second? The first had been the genius who had lost everything. Xiao Yin. Thank you. Xianxia gave a small nod. Her calm face showed no excitement at the praise. She turned, ignored the burning stares around her, and walked toward the end of the crowd where Xiao Yan stood alone. Brother Xiao Yin. She stopped in front of him and bowed politely. A gentle smile appeared on her beautiful face, drawing jealous looks from several nearby girls. Do I still deserve to hear you call me that? Xiao Yan asked bitterly. Xianxia was the brightest jewel of the clan's younger generation. Yet, after his fall, she remained one of the very few people who still treated him with the same respect as before. Brother Xiao Yan, you once told me something. Her smile was soft and warm. You said that only a person who knows how to let go can truly take hold of something new. A person who understands when to advance and when to retreat is the one who can live freely. Live freely. Xiao Yan laughed at himself. I was always better at giving advice than following it. Look at me now. Do I look like someone who's free? His gaze lowered. Besides, this world was never truly mine. Xianxia frowned at the despair in his voice. Brother Xiao Yan, I don't know why this happened to you, but I believe you will stand again. You will reclaim your strength, your honor, and everything that was taken from you. A faint blush touched her pale cheeks. The Xiao Yan from those days was very hard not to admire. Xiao Yan gave an awkward laugh. He did not know how to respond. A young man who never enjoyed romance might waste his youth, but Xiao Yan no longer had the confidence or the desire to think about such things. Without another word, he turned and slowly left the square. Xianxia stayed where she was watching his lonely back. After a moment of hesitation, she ignored the jealous whispers behind her and hurried after him. Soon, the two of them left side by side. Chapter 2. The Douqi Continent. The moon shone brightly over a sky filled with stars. At the top of a mountain, Xiao Yan lay flat on the grass with a blade of green grass between his lips. He chewed it slowly, letting its bitter taste spread across his tongue. He raised one hand before his face and looked through the spaces between his fingers at the silver moon hanging in the distant sky. He sighed. The memory of that afternoon's test returned to him. Xiao Yan lowered his hand, folded both arms behind his head, and stared upward with unfocused eyes. 15 years. The quiet words slipped from his mouth. Xiao Yan carried a secret that no one else knew. He was not originally from this world. More precisely, his soul did not belong here. He had come from a world called Earth. As for how he had ended up in this place, even he could not explain it. After living here for many years, Xiao Yan finally accepted the truth. He had been reborn in another world. As he grew older, he learned more about the land around him. This world was known as the Douqi Continent. There was no magic here, like the kind described in the stories he remembered from Earth. Dao Qi was the one true power that ruled this world. After countless generations of study and development, the cultivation of Douqi had reached an extraordinary level. Its uses had expanded far beyond combat and gradually entered every part of daily life. For the people of this continent, Douqi was not simply a weapon. It was the foundation of civilization. Cultivation methods were divided into 4 major ranks from lowest to highest Huangshuan earth and heaven. Each rank was further divided into low, middle, and high levels. The quality of a cultivation method had an enormous effect on a cultivator's future. If 2 people possessed equal strength, but one trained with a middle-level Zhuan method, while the other used only a middle-level Huang method, the cultivator with the Zhuan method would almost certainly hold the advantage. On the Douqi continent, a person's combat power depended on 3 major factors: The first and most important was personal strength. A one-star Do practitioner could possess a legendary heaven-rank cultivation method and still have no chance of defeating a Dao master trained in an ordinary Huang-rank method. Raw cultivation level created the foundation. The second factor was the cultivation method itself. Among people at the same level, the person with the stronger method could store, refine, and release Dao Qi more efficiently. The third factor was Dao techniques. Dao techniques were specialized skills used to control and unleash the power of Dao Qi. Like cultivation methods, they were divided into Huang, Xuan, Earth, and Heaven ranks. There was no shortage of Dao techniques across the continent. However, most techniques available to ordinary people belonged only to the Huang rank. Anyone who wanted something stronger usually had to join a sect or enroll in a Dao Qi academy. Of course, some people encountered rare opportunities. They discovered cultivation methods or Dao techniques left behind by ancient experts. If a technique matched the user's cultivation method and physical nature, its power could become even more terrifying. By considering a person's cultivation level, cultivation method and Dao techniques, others could estimate that person's true strength with reasonable accuracy. In general, the higher the rank of a cultivation method, the greater the cultivator's future potential. But high-level methods were not things ordinary people could obtain easily. Among common families, Huang-rank methods were the most widespread. Only powerful clans or established sects might possess Xuan-rank methods. The strongest cultivation method in the Xiao clan, for example, could only be practiced by the clan leader. It was called the Raging Lion Force. It was a wind-attributed, middle-level Xuan-rank cultivation method. Above the Xuan rank stood the Earth rank. Methods at that level were controlled only by ancient powers, great sects, and the strongest empires. As for heaven-rank cultivation methods, none had appeared openly for hundreds of years. Under normal circumstances, an ordinary person searching for a high-level cultivation method had about as much chance as someone trying to climb into the heavens. But nothing on the Dao Qi continent was ever absolute. The continent was vast, and countless races lived across its lands. In the far north were tribes famous for their overwhelming physical strength. Some were even able to merge their bodies with the souls of magical beasts. In the south lived powerful magical beast clans that had developed human intelligence, along with dark and mysterious races whose abilities were feared across the continent. There were also countless hidden experts. When one of these masters neared the end of life, they might leave behind a cultivation method of their own creation, sealing it in a secret place and waiting for a destined successor. Because of that, a popular saying had spread across the continent. If you fall from a cliff and land inside a cave, don't panic. Walk a few steps deeper. You might find something that turns you into a legendary expert. The saying was not entirely a joke. Throughout thousands of years of history, there had been many people who rose to greatness after stumbling upon a rare inheritance. Those stories inspired countless young cultivators to search cliffs caves, abandoned ruins, and remote wilderness for hidden treasures. Most of them came home with broken arms and legs. Still, this was a land filled with miracles. It was also a land where people constantly struggled to create miracles of their own. Before anyone could practice a true Dao Qi cultivation method, they first had to become a Dao practitioner. And Xiao was still far from that goal. He spat the grass from his mouth and suddenly jumped to his feet. The calm expression on his face twisted with anger. He stared into the night sky and shouted with all the frustration he had buried inside himself. "Damn you, heavens! You brought me into another world, so why did you turn me into a useless failure?" In his previous life, Xiao had been completely ordinary. Wealth and beautiful women had seemed like parallel lines always visible, but never destined to cross his path. After arriving on the Dao Qi continent, however, he discovered something unexpected. Because he carried the memories of 2 lives, his soul was far stronger than that of an ordinary person. On this continent, spiritual strength was mostly determined at birth. It could grow slightly with age, but no known cultivation method could directly train the soul. Not even a heaven rank method could accomplish that. Xiao powerful soul had given him extraordinary cultivation talent. It had also created his reputation as a genius. When an ordinary person suddenly became the center of everyone's attention, it was difficult to remain calm unless that person possessed exceptional self-control. In his previous life, Xiao had been an average young man. He had never developed the discipline of a saint. So, when he began cultivating Dao Qi, he did not choose to hide his talent and grow quietly. He chose to shine. He chose to stand beneath the admiration of the entire clan. If nothing had gone wrong, his reputation as a genius would only have grown greater. But at the age of 11, everything was taken from him. In a single night, the genius became a crippled joke. After shouting until his chest ached, Xiao slowly regained control of his emotions. His expression returned to its usual stillness. No matter how angry he became, he could not call back the chi vortex he had once worked so hard to form. He shook his head with a bitter smile. Deep down, the unfairness still tormented him. He had no idea what had happened to his body. Every examination showed that there was nothing physically wrong with him. His soul continued to grow stronger. His speed of absorbing dou qi was even faster than it had been during the height of his talent. Everything proved that his natural ability had never disappeared. And yet, every strand of dou qi that entered his body vanished without exception. Not a trace remained. The mystery had pushed him into years of despair. Xiao sighed and raised his hand. An ancient black ring rested on one finger. No one knew what material it had been made from. Its surface carried only a few faded patterns. It was the only keepsake his mother had left him before her death. He had worn it for 10 years, ever since he was 4. Because it had belonged to her, the ring held a place in his heart that nothing else could replace. He gently rubbed its worn surface. "Mother, these last few years I've truly failed to live up to your hopes." After another quiet sigh, Xiao suddenly turned toward the dark forest behind him and smiled. "Father, are you here?" Although his cultivation had fallen to stage 3, Xiao spiritual senses remained sharper than those of many 5-star dew practitioners. The moment he mentioned his mother, he sensed movement among the trees. A man's caring voice came from the forest. "Yanir, it's late. Why are you still out here?" Branches shifted. A middle-aged man stepped from the darkness with a warm smile and stopped before his son beneath the moonlight. He wore an elegant gray robe. His stride was powerful, and his thick eyebrows gave his face a naturally commanding presence. He was Xiao, the current leader of the Xiao clan. He was also Xiao father and a 5-star Grand Dew Master. "Father, you're still awake too." The smile on Xiao face became more genuine. He might have carried memories from another life, but from the day he was born into this world, the man before him had loved him without reservation. After Xiao lost his talent, that love had not weakened. If anything, it had grown stronger. That alone was enough for Xiao to call him father with complete sincerity. "Yanner, are you still thinking about this afternoon's result?" Xiao asked as he approached. "What is there to think about?" It was exactly what I expected. Xiao shook his head, though the smile on his lips was forced. Xiao studied his son's youthful face and sighed. After a long silence, he asked, "You're 15 this year, aren't you?" "Yes, father. In 1 more year, you'll have to take part in the coming-of-age ceremony." Xiao voice carried quiet pain. "That's right. Only 1 year left." Xiao hand tightened slightly, but his tone remained calm. He understood exactly what the ceremony meant. After coming of age, any clan member who failed to demonstrate enough cultivation potential would lose the right to enter the Daoqi Pavilion and select a formal cultivation method. Instead, that person would be assigned to one of the clan's businesses and spend the rest of life handling ordinary work. Those were the rules of the Xiao clan. Not even the clan leader could simply overturn them. If Xiao failed to become a Dou practitioner before the age of 25, the clan would no longer regard him as someone worth supporting. "I'm sorry," Xiao said, guilt filling his voice. "If your Dou Qi still hasn't reached stage 7 1 year from now, even I will have no choice but to send you to one of the clan's properties." He looked away for a moment. "This isn't a decision I can make alone. Those old men are always waiting for me to make a mistake. Father, I'll work harder. 1 year from now, I will reach stage 7. Xiao smiled, trying to reassure him. But inside, he laughed bitterly. 4 stages in a single year. The Xiao of the past might have done it. The Xiao of today had almost no chance. Xiao understood his son better than anyone. He knew exactly how impossible that promise sounded. All he could do was sigh and gently pat Xiao head. "It's getting late. Go back and rest. Important guests will visit the clan tomorrow. Make sure you don't behave disrespectfully. Important guests." "Who are they?" "You'll find out tomorrow." Xiao gave him a playful look, laughed, and turned back toward the forest. Xiao watched him leave with a helpless expression. "Don't worry, father. I'll give it everything I have." He rubbed the ancient black ring on his finger and looked up at the moon. At that exact moment, a strange light flickered within the ring. It was so faint that it could barely be seen. The light vanished in an instant. No one noticed. Chapter 3. The Visitors. Xiao sat cross-legged on his bed with his eyes closed. his hands formed a strange seal before his chest. His breathing rose and fell in a steady rhythm, completing a perfect cycle. With every breath feint, streams of pale energy entered through his nose and mouth. The energy moved slowly through his body, nourishing his bones and meridians. While he focused on cultivation, the ancient black ring on his finger flashed with a strange light. Then the light disappeared. Xiao slowly exhaled. His eyes opened. For an instant, a thin layer of white light passed through his dark pupils. It was the Du Qi he had just absorbed but had not yet fully refined. He immediately examined the condition of his body. His face twisted with anger. It disappeared again. Every bit of Du Qi I worked for is gone. Damn it. His fists tightened. After a long moment, he gave a bitter laugh, shook his head, and collapsed backward onto the bed. His legs were still trembling. With only stage 3 Dao Qi, he could not ignore the exhaustion caused by cultivating through the night. After resting briefly, Xiao got up and stretched his body. An elderly voice called from outside. "Third young master, the clan leader has asked you to come to the reception hall." Xiao was the third son of the family. He had 2 older brothers, but both had left the clan long ago to gain experience in the outside world. They returned only occasionally, and both had always treated their younger brother with great affection. "I'm coming." Xiao opened the door. An elderly steward in a green robe stood waiting outside. Xiao smiled. "Let's go, Steward Mo." The old steward nodded kindly. As he turned away, a trace of regret passed through his eyes. With the third young master's former talent, he should have become an outstanding Du practitioner by now. What a shame. Xiao followed Steward Mo out of the rear courtyard. They stopped in front of the clan's reception hall. The steward knocked respectfully before pushing open the door. The hall was spacious, and many people were already seated inside. At the highest position sat Xiao and 3 expressionless elders. The 3 men were the senior elders of the clan. Their authority was almost equal to that of the clan leader himself. To their left sat several powerful members of the older generation. A number of talented young clan members had also been allowed to attend. Across from them sat 3 strangers. There was no need to guess. These were the important guests Xiao had mentioned the night before. Curious, Xiao studied them. In the center sat an elderly man wearing a silver-white robe. A pleasant smile remained on his face, and his eyes occasionally flashed with sharp intelligence. Xiao gaze moved to the old man's chest. Then it stopped. A silver moon had been embroidered onto the robe. 7 golden stars surrounded it. A 7-star Grand Du Master. Xiao hid his surprise. This old man was 2 stars stronger than his father. Anyone who reached the Grand Du Master realm could become a famous expert in a region. Great and small factions alike competed to recruit people at that level. The sudden appearance of such a powerful guest in the Xiao clan was impossible to ignore. Beside the old man sat a young man and a young woman. Both wore matching silver-white robes. The man appeared to be around 20 years old. He was tall, handsome, and carried himself with confidence. 5 golden stars were displayed on his chest, marking him as a 5-star Du practitioner. Reaching that level at only 20 proved that his talent was well above average. His appearance and strength quickly attracted the attention of many young women in the hall. Even Xiaomei, seated nearby, glanced at him several times with obvious interest. The young man did not notice any of them. His attention remained fixed on the girl beside him. She appeared to be about Xiao age. To his surprise, she was even more beautiful than Xiaomei. Among the younger generation of this Xiao clan, perhaps only Xiao Shuner could compare with her. No wonder the young man treated every other girl in the room as though they did not exist. A green gemstone hung from the girl's delicate ear. Whenever it moved, it produced a soft, clear chime that made her noble presence even more noticeable. 3 golden stars were embroidered on her chest. A 3-star Dao practitioner. Xiao quietly drew in a breath. If she reached that level without using outside methods to force her advancement, then she really is an extraordinary genius. His gaze remained on her face for only a moment before moving away. Xiao might have looked 15, but his soul had lived through 2 lifetimes. The girl was undeniably beautiful. That did not mean he had to stare at her like a fool. His indifference surprised her. She was not arrogant enough to believe the entire world should revolve around her, but she understood her own beauty and status. Xiao calm reaction was unusual. Still, it was only a passing curiosity. "Father, honored elders." Xiao stepped forward and bowed respectfully. "Yanner, you're here. Come and sit down." At the sight of his son, Xiao paused his conversation with the guests and smiled. Xiao returned the smile. He pretended not to notice the impatience and contempt in the 3 elders' eyes. Then he looked for a seat. There was none. Not a single place in the hall had been prepared for him. My position in this clan really does fall lower every day. He laughed bitterly inside. In the past, they at least tried to hide it. Now they're humiliating me in front of important guests. Several young clan members watched him standing awkwardly in the center of the hall. Mocking smiles spread across their faces. They clearly enjoyed seeing him embarrassed. Xiao soon noticed what was happening. Anger flashed across his face. "Second elder, you." "Oh, forgive me," said the yellow-robed elder with a cold smile. "I somehow forgot to prepare a seat for the third young master." He slapped his forehead and pretended to be ashamed. "I'll have someone bring one immediately." His mouth offered an apology. His eyes did not hide their ridicule. "Brother Xiao, you can sit here." A graceful voice suddenly crossed the hall. The three elders froze and turned toward Xiao, who had been sitting quietly in a corner. Their lips moved, but none of them dared to object. Xiao closed the thick book in her hands. She looked calmly at Xiao and blinked playfully. Xiao hesitated, rubbed his nose, and nodded. Under the jealous stares of the other boys, he walked over and sat beside her. "You rescued me again," he said quietly. A faint fragrance surrounded the girl beside him. Xiao smiled, revealing a delicate dimple. Her slender fingers opened the ancient book once more. Though still young, she already possessed an unusual combination of gentleness and intelligence. Her eyelashes lowered. A hint of sadness entered her voice. "Brother Xiao hasn't sat alone with Xiao in 3 years. Well, Xiao gave an awkward laugh at the quiet complaint in her expression. "You're the clan's greatest young talent now. You can have as many friends as you want." Xiao remained silent for a moment. Then she slowly turned to look at him. When Xiao was between 4 and 6 years old, someone secretly entered her room almost every night. Xiao expression stiffened slightly. That person used a very clumsy method and a very limited amount of Du Qi to nourish Xiao's meridians and strengthen her bones. She continued in a calm voice. Every time he exhausted himself until he was covered in sweat. Then he left without saying a word. Her eyes held a quiet smile. "Brother Xiao, who do you think that person was?" When she finished, she smiled as though the question meant nothing. The brief charm in her expression caused the surrounding boys to stare. Xiao's heart jumped. How would I know? He coughed twice and quickly looked in another direction. Xiao laughed softly. Her gaze returned to the pages of her book, and she spoke as though she were thinking aloud. "Xiao knows that person meant well." She turned a page. But Xiao was still a girl. How could someone secretly enter her room and touch her body without permission? If Xiao ever discovers who it was. She gave a quiet little hum. The corner of Xiao's mouth twitched. Feeling increasingly guilty, he decided that silence was his safest choice. Chapter 4. The Misty Cloud Sect. Inside the reception hall, Xiao and the 3 clan elders continued speaking with the elderly visitor. The old man, however, seemed to be struggling to say something. Every time the words reached his lips, he hesitated and swallowed them back. Whenever that happened, the noble young woman beside him gave him an impatient glance. Xiao listened for a while, then shook his head in boredom. "Brother Xiao, do you know who they are?" Xiao asked the question, while casually turning a page in her ancient book. "You know." Xiao looked at her with interest. "Did you notice the silver cloud and sword embroidered on their robes?" Xiao studied the 3 visitors more carefully. Sure enough, each robe carried the emblem of a silver cloud crossed by a sword. "They're from the Misty Cloud Sect." He lowered his voice, unable to hide his surprise. Although Xiao had never traveled beyond the region, he had read enough to understand what the Misty Cloud Sect represented. The Xiao clan lived in Wutan City, a major city within the Jiama Empire. Because it stood near the magical Beast Mountain Range, Wutan City held an important position in regional trade. Even so, it ranked near the bottom among the empire's larger cities. The Xiao clan possessed considerable influence in Wutan City, but it was not the only powerful family. 2 other great clans controlled similar strength. The 3 factions had competed openly and secretly for years without producing a clear winner. If the Xiao clan was considered one of the strongest powers in Wutan City, then the Misty Cloud Sect was an overlord of the entire Jiama Empire. The difference between them was the difference between earth and sky. No wonder even Xiao, who normally carried the authority of a clan leader, spoke to these guests with such restraint. "What would people from the Misty Cloud Sect want with our family?" Xiao asked. Xiao's fingertip moved slowly across the page. After a short silence, she answered, "I think their visit has something to do with you." "With me? I don't know any of them." Xiao frowned and shook his head. "Do you know the young woman's name?" Xiao glanced toward the noble girl across the room. Who is she? Nalanyanran. A strange expression appeared on Shuner's face as she said the name. Xiaoyan's body went still. Nalanyanran. The granddaughter of Lionheart Marshal Xianxia. He stared at the young woman and his face slowly tightened. She is your fiancée, Shuner said with a faint smile. Years ago, your grandfather and Nalanjie were close friends. You and Nalanyanran were born around the same time, so the two old men arranged a marriage between you. She paused before continuing. 3 years later, your grandfather was badly injured in a battle with an enemy and passed away. After his death, the relationship between the Xiao and Nalan families gradually weakened. Shuner watched the shock on Xiaoyan's face. Nalanjie is extremely proud and he cares deeply about honor. He personally agreed to the engagement. So, even as your reputation declined over the last 3 years, he never sent anyone to cancel it. That old man is stubborn enough to be almost lovable. Xiaoyan shook his head and laughed. In the Nalan family, Nalanji's word is absolute. Shuner continued. No one dares openly oppose him. He loves his granddaughter, but convincing him to break an engagement he personally arranged would not be easy. However, 5 years ago, Nalanyanran was accepted as a personal disciple by Yunyun, the leader of the Misty Cloud Sect. Over those 5 years, she displayed exceptional cultivation talent. Yunyun values her greatly. Shuner's voice grew quieter. When a person gains enough power to control her own future, she begins removing the things she doesn't want. She looked directly at Xiaoyan. Unfortunately, her engagement to you appears to be the thing she wants to remove most. You mean she came here to cancel our engagement? Xiaoyan's expression changed. Anger surged through him. It was not because Nalanyanran looked down on him. She was undeniably beautiful, but Xiaoyan was not so desperate for a pretty face that he would force a marriage between two people who did not want each other. If they were not meant to become husband and wife, he would feel little more than passing regret. What he could not accept was the way she intended to do it. If Nalanyanran publicly demanded the cancellation of their engagement in front of the entire clan, his father would lose all dignity as clan leader. Nalanyanran possessed beauty status and extraordinary talent. Once news of the broken engagement spread, people would say that Xiaoyan had been a worthless toad reaching for a swan only to be crushed beneath her feet. Xiaoyan would become a joke. Worse, Xiaozhan would be mocked along with him and lose much of the authority he needed to lead the clan. Xiaoyan drew a deep breath. His hand tightened inside his sleeve. If I were a Dou Master right now, who would dare humiliate us like this? If Xiaoyan had already reached the Dou Master realm at 15, even the support of the Misty Cloud Sect would not make Nalanyanran act so carelessly. A 15-year-old Dou Master would be a terrifying existence. Across the long history of the Douchi continent, only a handful of people had reached that level so young. Every one of them later became a legendary figure in the cultivation world. A soft hand slipped into Xiaoyan's sleeve and gently took hold of his clenched fist. Shuner spoke in a warm voice. Brother Xiaoyan, if she truly does this, then the loss will be hers. I believe that one day she will regret how little she understood you. Regret. Xiaoyan gave a cold, self-mocking laugh. Look at what I've become. Do I still have the right to make someone like her regret anything? He fell silent. Then his tone suddenly changed. Shuner, you seem to know a great deal about these people. You've told me things before that even my father may not know. How do you know all of this? Shuner paused for the briefest moment. Then she smiled and said nothing. Xiaoyan looked at her evasive expression and helplessly wet his lips. Shuner carried the Xiao family name, but she and Xiaoyan were not related by blood. He had never met her parents. Whenever he asked Xiaozhan about her background, his father refused to answer. Even more strangely, Xiaozhan's expression always contained caution and perhaps even fear. To Xiaoyan, Shuner's identity had always been a mystery. But no matter how he questioned her, the clever girl answered with silence. Every attempt to uncover her secrets ended before it began. Fine, you win. Keep your secrets. Xiaoyan shook his head. A moment later, his expression darkened. The old man beside Nalanyanran had received one impatient glance after another. At last, he slowly rose from his seat. Xiaoyan laughed coldly inside. So this is how she plans to do it. She'll use the power of the Misty Cloud Sect to pressure my father. Nalanyanran, you chose your method well. Chapter 5. The Qi Gathering Powder. The elderly man in the silver-white robe cleared his throat and rose to his feet. He cupped his hands politely toward Xiaozhan. Clan leader, Xiao, our main purpose in visiting your family today is to ask a favor. Xiaozhan also stood. Mr. Guya, please speak freely. He smiled with practiced courtesy. If the request is within the Xiao clan's ability, we will do our best to help. Ge Ye was a 7-star Grando Master. Xiao Jian could not afford to treat him lightly. However, without knowing the nature of the request, he could not make an unconditional promise. Ge Ye smiled and gestured toward the young woman beside him. Clan leader Xiao, do you recognize her? Xiao Chen paused. He studied the girl for a moment, then shook his head with visible embarrassment. Forgive my poor memory. This young lady is… Nalan Yanran had been only 10 years old when Yun Yun accepted her as a disciple. She had spent the last 5 years training in the Misty Cloud Sect. A young girl's appearance could change greatly during those years. It was only natural that Xiao Jian failed to recognize the young woman who was at least in name his future daughter-in-law. Ge Ye coughed softly. Her name is Nalan Yanran. Nalan Yanran, granddaughter of the old Lionheart Marshal Nalan Jai. Surprise appeared first on Xiao Jian's face. Then his expression brightened. He had clearly remembered the engagement arranged years ago, and his smile toward the young woman became warm. So, this is my niece Yanran. Uncle Xiao hasn't seen you in many years. Don't blame these old eyes for failing to recognize you. The sudden change in his manner left many people in the hall momentarily confused. The 3 clan elders exchanged looks and frowned. Uncle Xiao, I'm the one who should apologize, Nalan Yanran said with a sweet smile. I haven't visited you in so many years. How could I blame you? Xiao Chen laughed. I heard that sect leader Yun Yun personally accepted you as a disciple. At first, I thought it was only a rumor. It seems the story was true after all. He looked at her with open approval. Your talent must be remarkable. Yanran has simply been fortunate. Nalan Yanran's smile was restrained. She appeared uncomfortable beneath Xiao Chan's enthusiasm and quietly tugged at Ge Yi's sleeve. Kasai understood. He smiled and spoke again. Clan leader Xiao, the request I mentioned concerns Yanran. He paused deliberately. Furthermore, it was the sect leader herself who asked us to bring this matter before you. When Ge Yi mentioned the sect leader, his expression became solemn. The smile slowly disappeared from Xiao Jian's face. Yun Yun, leader of the Misty Cloud Sect, stood at the very peak of the Jiama Empire. Compared with her, Xiao Jian was merely the head of a small regional clan. He could not afford to offend her. But with Yun Yun's power and influence, what could she possibly need from the Xiao clan? And Ge Ye had said the matter involved Nalan Yanran. Unless… The corner of Xiao Jian's mouth twitched. The hand hidden inside his sleeve began to tremble. He forced down the anger rising in his chest. Mr. Ge Ye, please continue. Ge Ye looked uncomfortable. But when he remembered how deeply Yun Yun valued Nalan Yanran, he gathered his courage. Clan leader Xiao, as you know, the rules of the Misty Cloud Sect are extremely strict. The sect leader has placed enormous expectations on Yanran. She has nearly decided that Yanran will one day inherit her position. According to a special rule of our sect, the chosen successor cannot enter a romantic relationship or remain bound by an engagement before officially assuming leadership. The sect leader spoke with Yanran and learned that she still has a marriage agreement with the Xiao clan. Kakuya took a breath. Therefore, the sect leader hopes that clan leader Xiao will agree to dissolve the engagement. Crack. The jade cup in Xiao Zhan's hand shattered instantly. It crumbled into powder within his grip. The entire hall fell silent. Even the 3 elders were stunned by Ge Ye's request. But only a moment later, mockery appeared in their eyes as they looked toward Xiao Zhan. Someone had come directly to his home to force the cancellation of his son's engagement. After this humiliation, how much authority would the clan leader have left? Many of the boys and girls in the hall had not known that Xiao Yan and Nalan Yanran were engaged. After whispering questions to their parents, excitement spread across their faces. One mocking gaze after another turned toward Xiao Yan's. Nalan Yanran kept her head lowered as she saw Xiao Zhan's dark expression. Her fingers twisted together nervously. Clan leader, Xiao, I understand that this request places you in a difficult position, Ge Ye said with a helpless sigh. Then his voice gradually grew colder. But for the sake of our sect leader, I ask that you agree to dissolve the engagement. Xiao Zhan's fists tightened. Pale green doqi began to rise around his body. The energy thickened until it formed the faint outline of a lion's head across his face. It was the Xiao clan's strongest cultivation method, the Raging Lion Force, a middle-level Xuan rank technique. At the sight of Xiao Zhan's reaction, Ge Ye's expression became serious. He immediately stepped in front of Nalan Yanran. His hands formed a seal. Green doqi gathered into the shape of an eagle's claws, radiating an edge as sharp as a sword. This was one of the Misty Cloud Sect's advanced cultivation methods, the Green Wood Sword Art, a low-level Xuan rank technique. The pressure of the 2 experts spread across the hall. The weaker young people turned pale. Their chests tightened, and several could barely breathe. Xiaozhan's breathing became heavier. Then, the 3 clan elders shouted at once, their voices striking the room like thunder. "Xiaochen, stop this immediately! Do not forget that you are the leader of the Xiao clan." Xiaochan's body stiffened. The Dao Qi surrounding him slowly withdrew until it disappeared completely. He dropped heavily back into his chair. His cold eyes settled on Nalan Yanren, who still kept her head lowered. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "Niece Nalan, you have remarkable courage. Nalan Su is truly fortunate to have a daughter like you." Nalan Yanren trembled slightly. "Uncle Xiao." "Call me clan leader Xiao." Xiaozhan raised one hand and cut her off. "I am no longer worthy of being called your uncle. You may become the future leader of the Misty Cloud Sect. One day, you will almost certainly become a figure whose name shakes the entire Duchi continent." His expression was painfully calm. "My Yaner is only a young man of ordinary talent. He truly is not worthy of you." "Thank you for your understanding, clan leader Xiao." Guye immediately brightened and smiled with relief. "Clan leader, Xiao the sect leader, understands that today's request is disrespectful. Therefore, she instructed me to bring an item as compensation." Kukya touched the ring on his finger. An ancient jade box appeared in his palm. He carefully opened the lid. A strange fragrance immediately spread through the hall. Everyone who inhaled it felt their mind clear and their spirit relax. The 3 elders leaned forward to see what was inside. The moment they recognized it, all 3 men jerked in shock. Their voices burst out together. "Sea gathering powder."